Hey guys, it's Ross, and we're out here in the backyard, and I want to do a short video on my three favorite varieties. Some of you guys have been really asking me, and you guys constantly ask me. It's not just this part of the year, but I think a lot of you guys, for whatever reason, are looking for fruit trees in July. That's the wrong time to be looking for fruit trees, guys. But you're curious to know my thoughts, and I've never really made a video on this topic of my favorite varieties. We have somewhere over 200 varieties, and this isn't something that I am doing just to have that many varieties. This isn't something that I'm like, I want more. It's not a greedy thing. It's not a collecting thing. It's because I love these fruits and I want to taste them all and evaluate them all and give an honest opinion for you guys so that you can make informed decisions on what it is that you want to grow yourself. So we're going to do that on most of these varieties here if I think that they're a standout. And in this particular video, we're going to talk about my three favorite that I've been growing now for about 3 years. This is my 4th year, I believe, growing figs. And I've tasted of many, many varieties now. You can get a lot of these guys to fruit at a young age by pinching. With enough heat and pinching, you can get fruit on very, very young trees. In fact, you can even get them on new grafts. Let me show you guys a new graft that I had just done this year. Here's a new graft. You can see the graft union right there. And if you look up, it's got fruit on it. I pinched it. And here's the new growth that came out after I pinched it. So we get a really good representation, I think, on some varieties, believe it or not, even at a young age. I talked previously in videos about how to get better tasting figs, and a lot of folks will tell you, and I disagree with the popular opinion that you will have better tasting figs with age. I agree. Age will solve that problem, right? So if you have young figs, that doesn't mean, though, you can't have very good quality figs. I find that on almost every variety I've grown, the figs are good, even at a young age, exceptional. Because of water. If you deprive them of water and you don't overwater them, a young fig tree doesn't have a very strong root system. If you overwater a weak root system, it's going to uptake a lot more water, and your figs are going to be waterlogged, and you're not going to get that flavor that most people consider to be very good on a fig tree that's much older, that has a very large root system. So I believe that, yes, age will give you better tasting figs, but it doesn't necessarily mean you can't have them at a young age, because it's really in the water. And even an older tree that's been around for 10 years, you could still overwater that tree and have inferior tasting figs. So I don't think age is the answer. I think water is the answer. So with my younger trees, I really am careful about watering these guys so I can get an accurate taste description. In addition to water, I want to let the figs ripen at various stages. So I will let them ripen, like I've said in previous videos, I'll let them ripen for 7 days after swelling, 10 days after swelling, 13 days after swelling, and then I'll let them go as long as humanly possible. And that way I can really evaluate some of these varieties, I think, in 1 year in terms of taste. Right? It may take many years before you can evaluate the production, the earliness, the vigor, other attributes of the variety itself. But for taste, I believe you can evaluate them at a young age. Now, I've had the trees I'm about to mention, I've had them for quite some time now, and I've been able to evaluate their their other habits in addition to their taste. My number 3 fig, like I was alluding to in the beginning, is Azores Dark, and I'm even propagating more of it so that I can have more copies of it and eventually spread this fig around, because I think it's well worth having for somebody in this climate. Overall, it performs exceptionally well here. It also tastes very good. The number 2 fig for this climate, and actually I believe Azores Dark, if it's related to a Hardy Chicago, like I believe, it should do well in every climate. Hardy Chicago does well all over the place. Smith, not as much. I think there's varying reports. It does better in humid climates like the South and the Northeast and the East Coast. Smith is an early variety for us here. And if you live on the East Coast, this should be a must-have variety. Even if you live in the Pacific Northwest, this should be a must-have variety. I can't say, though, for someone that's in a subtropical climate like California or the desert, I'm not entirely sure if this would be the best choice for you. It is incredibly good in that it tastes just like Azores Dark. There's very little difference. The only difference in my mind is the acidity. It has a nice acidic bite to it, and overall is an exceptionally good piece of fruit. The quality on that fruit and Azores Dark is really, really good. They have a nice berry flavor. Here's the overall profile of the fig and the kind of figs that I like myself. I really like figs with softer skin, thinner skin. When people are looking for figs to ship them commercially, they want a thicker skin that's going to hold up well in shipment. It's not going to bruise the fig. You know, for a home gardener, we don't really care about that because we're eating them literally off the tree or maybe the day after. We want thinner skin. It's more pleasant to your mouth. Really, it really is. It's just a nicer texture. And Smith has a very thin skin, as well as Azores Dark. It's so thin that it's almost like it's not there. It's kind of like you're just eating a ball of jam sometimes. The way I would describe the flavors of these two is that I would say that they're honey berry figs. So they are berry figs to start, and if you pick them early, they'll only be a berry fig. So what I mean by berry is that they taste like a berry of some kind. There's many different figs that have different berry flavors to them. Probably the closest thing to these two varieties is a strawberry flavor. It really does taste a lot like a strawberry. And then what happens is the fig ripens on the tree for quite a bit of time after the inside has already turned red. The berry intensifies, the berry flavor intensifies, and then you get honey. The fig itself produces honey, its own nectar, which is a beautiful thing in nature. I think there's a few fruits out there that do this. I think honeydew is one of them. I think they call it honeydew because if you grow it yourself, it's properly ripened, you'll actually have some kind of nectar within the melon. The same thing with my grapes. When I let my grapes ripen for a super long time, they actually are so sweet that they are producing their own nectar. I dried some of them in the house, and you could physically see the honey that I was talking about. So we'll show you guys that in other videos, but you know, it's a really intense strawberry flavor with honey, which adds a lot of sweetness. It's not overwhelmingly sweet, but it's quite sweet. And then my favorite variety is probably Italian 258. And overall, these three trees are very productive here. You can see that on every single node, Italian 258 has a fig. It looks like it skipped a node here. Maybe that got broken off. even on some nodes it has a double fig, another double fig. This double fig pattern is not uncommon on this tree. So it's quite productive. It grows very well. It's very vigorous. Overall, I think this fig performs almost as well as Smith and almost as well as the Azores Dark. And the figs, though, are better. The figs are larger, tastier. But the problem with Italian 258 is it's on the later side. So we want all of our figs, guys, here in this climate on the East Coast, we want them to ripen before the fall weather sets in, because most people on the East Coast, our fall weather is very wet and it ruins the quality of a lot of figs. So for that reason, Azores Dark and Smith, Azores Dark being the earliest fig I have, and Smith being a really reliable mid-season fig, early to mid-season, and then Italian 258 is more like mid-season to late. It's really covers the three bases of having figs throughout the entire season. If you can see here, I'm air layering all of those trees to have multiple copies of them, because I strongly believe these three varieties are going to be really top contenders. I even have an Italian 258 in the ground. I should probably put an Azores Dark in the ground, but I have Malta Black in the ground, which I find is quite similar in my mind. But I'm air layering these guys because I think they're going to be varieties that everyone should have here in the Northeast that are just far superior to anything else I've eaten. The problem here with my recommendations, guys, is that the three varieties I just recommended all have a similar taste profile. They have the berry followed by the honey, and that's a very pleasant, out of this world fig that if you've never had a fig like that, or you've never even had a fig before, you're going to be so convinced that figs are the greatest thing you've ever eaten that you're going to go crazy. It really is that combo that gets people addicted to this and makes people think, you know, this is like, there's nothing better than this. And I do. I believe that. I think that the honey-berry combo is great. But there's other flavors of figs that I've talked about in previous videos that we haven't, that I've touched on, but I haven't mentioned in this video because that's my favorite flavor combo, right? That's my favorite type of fig. Now, there's other varieties out here that could be just honey figs. They just taste like a melon, kind of taste like honeydew or taste like cantaloupe. They have that melon flavor followed up by some nice fig nectar that's literally dripping out of the fig or pouring out of the skin. I've had that happen where it was so much honey within the fig that it started pouring out the sides of the fig. So I believe that, you know, these are the best, but there's other flavors out there that you may find better. I have a friend who's been growing figs for 20 plus years. His favorite figs are the honey figs. He doesn't like so much of the berry flavors. I find that the berry flavor adds a lot of complexity, a lot of flavor that is just out of this world. Now, that doesn't mean that you're gonna think that they're the best. In fact, you may not even like the berry flavors. I don't know. But there's also figs that are sugar figs. You know, like my improved Celeste that I have in the ground out front of the house. That's a sugar fig. It tastes a lot like a melon combined with brown sugar, oftentimes coupled with honey. We also have tropical tasting figs. My Hative de Argentile. Here's my Hative de Argentile. It's another early variety that I'm thinking may be a nice winner here. Has a very interesting berry flavor that's almost tropical. It has a very pineapple-y taste to it. It's very interesting, right? So you can get some nice variation with this stuff. You know, my Suadi, which I really like, is a light berry flavored fig. It has a berry flavor that is more refreshing, more pleasant to eat, that isn't so overpowering that you can eat 20 of them in one sitting and not have a problem. You know what I mean? It's not very rich. It's like, you know, like I said, it's just more refreshing and more pleasant to eat that way. You know, and then you also have figs with different textures to them, different skins, different. The interior of the fig could be totally different. I personally like jammy figs. I like figs that literally resemble jam in a fig. That isn't an exaggeration in any form. You know, there's also figs out there that are more mealy on the inside, that are more meaty, that are more juicy. Those are the figs like brown turkey or black mission that a lot of people also enjoy, and that give you the illusion that there's a lot more fig than there actually is when you bite into it. It has more meat to it. And then there's also figs out there that when you ripen them long enough, the interior turns into a fruit leather. It has a congealed gel, is what I like to call it, where the interior of the fig, the fruit of the fig, congeals and turns into like a fruit roll-up or a gusher or a gummy bear or a fruit roll. You know what I mean? It has that fruit leather feel to it that almost is like processed, but in a natural form.